Roll, please.
Yes, Ash.
I'm here.
McQueen. Here. Brown. Here. The board members.
Here.
Also present, village manager of Space South Brown and finance director Matt Dillon.
All right.
And Kevin Stokes.
Hey.
All right.
You did this.
I did too. Okay.
I'm glad to become grungy.
That's yours. All right, so we're going to begin by talking about a few budget-related issues, and that's why Matt Dillon is joining us in case folks have questions about process stuff, and then I think he's going to jump out and come back for the staff part. Okay, first of all, we have events here, and my understanding is that part of what we want to talk about is kind of, we've got this fixed chunk of money, how are we allocating that money, and maybe moving beyond just kind of a first come, first serve. I will say that every year that we've talked about commission and event budget, there's been this concern that it will run out, and it never has. So, just FYI. I also don't, when I look at kind of what's ahead, really see that happening this year either. With that being said, we talked about signature events that I think we want to budget for more specifically in the future. And then we've got certain commissions that also like funding. And so I think that's really what we're talking about. I started to make a list of events that I think are on that signature list, right, which are MLK Junior Day, Juneteenth, YS Pride. Are there others that we feel that are?
We said July 4th was becoming a signature event.
Kwanzaa.
The Kwanzaa,
Halloween.
the bonfires, Halloween, Beggars Night, yeah, so.
Well, no, we've never pulled out of council budget for Halloween, so.
No, we've used administration
But,
and
I
PD.
mean, if we're, seems like we should,
Sure.
whatever.
And I'll just add a note, just a timing thing with Kwanzaa. It's like at the very end of the year, so the point is, just the timing of the budget request tends to dictate which fiscal year it falls into.
Mhm.
So point is, we've already we spent money this year for last year's Kwanzaa, because again, just timing.
Yeah.
So if we do it more timely this year, you might see 2 Kwanzaa expenses in this fiscal year, this calendar year.
So, Marion,
Well, remember you asked me to say something about Strong Town?
when we get to goals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and just a quick comment on Kwanzaa, and I'm just more of a question. So we got the blowback from Jumpy. I believe it was on Kwanzaa a while ago. Bryant Center says you can't have a religious activity in the Bryant Center. We always do Kwanzaa, and we always fund Kwanzaa, so.
It's not religious.
Cultural at best.
Yeah, so that was we've spoken about that, it's not religious. It's secular, it's not religious,
Okay, so that whole thing is
it's not religious.
not to be
We're
worried
not.
about.
Okay, don't worry about John.
So-
Write that down.
You
So,
get street
Fun
fair.
person.
oh yeah, I guess street fair is.
Street fair? Yeah, so.
I guess we should have a list
Yes.
except January.
We have our own planning calendar where we track all of these because, we have to work on some level. So we've got street fair, we've got out on the lawn, we've got graduation, we've got commencement day, all of these things we plan for them because they take up resources. They don't necessarily rise to the level of, or they accounts function. For example, the Widows Fund and the flower distribution. That's a signature event. It doesn't come to council, it comes for a resolution, but it gets funded out of the Widows Fund.
Right, and so Art on the Lawn is that fund, it's not funded?
No, it's not, but
Okay.
from events that happen
Sure.
in the village.
Yeah,
That we
absolutely.
plan for, they don't necessarily come to signature events where council is putting money into it, so.
So, yeah.
I think there's some overlap.
But if you're talking about a signature event, I guess my question is, I heard signature in terms of, this is a culturally based or philosophy-based thing that council wants to provide support for, which to me, July 4th doesn't fall into that category, but Juneteenth does. You know what I mean? And I don't know if I'm just making those without any basis, or whether that's something that you are considering, because
I would still call July 4th a signature event because it is a community-wide event.
Yeah.
The government
That's
is having
great.
involved in it, it's just the council doesn't put money in.
Yeah, and I think we need to, I think there's maybe 1.5 or 2 different conversations or motivations going on. One, signature event, because it's a big deal, we support it, that list is yay long.
Yes.
It's a separate category and lesser of the ones we actually put money towards.
Yeah, so village
But
supported.
putting money towards it does not define it as a signature event. It is that in and of itself. Whether we fund it or the degree to which we fund it is a separate
Earth
conversation.
Day
Or-
will, it's going to become an annual.
Yes.
It
Better-
doesn't
better
necessarily
funding.
take a lot, I mean, you put up a banner, maybe that's all the village is gonna do, but I anticipate it's going to become a bigger and bigger event. That's what we're talking
Well, for Earth Day, we have planned 2 other type of activities, the repair cafe that we did one year, we tried bringing it back this year, we had the shredder day, which we couldn't host it that day, we had it at a separate
about. I
day.
think probably we'll do the repair cafe at a different
Yeah.
time than, because there's so many other things.
Yeah,
And then for Trails Day, we're providing some support, but
yeah,
But not-
and there's 2 types of 2 separate trails there, there's
Celebrate Trails, and then
Celebrate
there's the
Trails.
Buckeye Trails.
A month later is Buckeye Trail. Yeah, so we're
So-
talking about a lot of events.
Okay,
Actually,
So I-
So Porch Fest is one that you do sponsor through the PAC. The council pays for the porta potties and a few other things.
If I could really quickly, so of these events, which ones definitely affect our
right.
budget?
I think it's MLK Junior Day, Juneteenth, Wise Pride, Kwanzaa, and Porch Fest. And then I agree with the sentiment that for these other events that our village supported, breaking out what the budget looks like for those makes sense. But I think, it seems to me like for our purposes here, we're just trying to figure out how to allocate these funds for things that are coming out of the council budget. So,
well, the environmental commission put money into Earth Day
okay.
and probably will continue. And
Well, and I think
also-
commissions are another thing. that we'll
Oh,
talk
okay,
about.
sorry. Neighborhood potluck,
That was
Block
HRC,
parties.
that's just a
it
village.
doesn't necessarily, block parties, it doesn't necessarily one event, but that's something else. HRC?
Yeah, it's been HRC.
Okay, so that's not
Initially
council.
HRC, then just general council, since HRC's been on hiatus, for lack of a better term, but it's just become a straight council.
So one idea is that, kind of based on the past, we could come up with amounts, like Wise Pride, it seems like 1,500. Juneteenth, it seems like 1,500, and we could start there. Based on, sort of initial allocations, if that's the direction that we're going to for these events and for commissions, I assume we'll have some kind of buffer, and then that could maybe be the ad hoc aspect, right? Like we've sort of reserved these funds, and then if somebody comes and they're like, can we get a little bit more for this? Then maybe that's where we have a little bit of leeway to make some decisions. So that's one thought I have.
Yeah,
So,
and I agree with that, and then there's, and Matt, glad you're here, but I think from what I recall, from the last, council packet that had, an accounting of where council funds have gone, there's other little things, and you all, like somebody's birthday cake, or just various little things that can accumulate, but like I saw them on the report, and like, oh, we did that, nice, but it was just some little thing that I didn't know about, or I didn't pay attention.
So- Just to go back, just really quickly to what you were saying, so in order to kind of shore things up and make things a little neater, having a maximum amount per event at 15 at, 15 for Juneteenth, 15 for Pride. That's a maximum event, because we want people, we want the community to participate with their money and support too. That just for me, the way, like, for my brain, it just makes sense to just have a cap.
I'd be good with that.
Well, and to Carmen's point, I'm kind of sideways about Pride in that their goal is to be making money. I mean, they are raising revenue through the event, and, I have some feelings about where some of those revenues went early on, because it went to stray animals, which I'm all in favor of that, but not if the monies could have gone to transgender youth, which would have been more appropriate. And council has no control over what happens with those revenues, because you just don't. You just give them money, and then they make money, and then money goes a weird direction. So to me, I feel like, well, hold on, should you be giving that much to Juneteenth when they're doing fairly well?
And I agree from a different point of view too. Had we had the vote again, I would have voted against the 1,500. But I let myself be swayed because I thought, oh, I want to be against gay pride. Because the village, it's not just what council spends, it's what the village is spending. I mean, it's all one pot.
Yeah, security,
And
we're spending over $2,000 in security.
Well, okay, didn't it come up to like 4,000 something? So, I mean, if we're spending 4,000 something on gay pride, and we can say that it helps downtown businesses, but to me, that may be enough.
Mhm.
Because add 1,500, you're up to like 6,000.
Yeah,
That's over the top, I think.
it is a lot of money. However, there are some expenses that we just have to absorb, public safety expenses.
Right.
Just because we're a destination. And so I think if we had sales tax, if we were able to collect sales tax and what other municipalities are able to collect, then it all shakes out, because your operating costs go up because you're responding to these business activities, but you make that money back through another channel.
Also,
I think
Pride is so
Did
big.
you, I'm sorry, just point of order. I think Gav's been trying to raise his hand, because he's so polite. Yeah, but I thought you had a direct response to something Mary Ann said.
I just was interested in this thing of, are other of these signature events in the, like, sort of, they are revenue generating, or they're for profit? I guess that seems like a pretty reasonable distinction also, is like, if you're making money off the thing, we're not really like adding to a profit line. If you're a nonprofit thing, then we help with that. I mean, I'm not saying I don't wanna help with Pride, just to
Yeah.
be clear, but like, that would be a reasonable line.
Yeah, I don't
It
think
is
any of them are,
nonprofit.
what's that? Non-profit, yeah, I don't think any of these are profit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that they're indirectly contribute to the local economy. So like Pride, while the organization is nonprofit, it does generate some money, but to Julie's point, that it generates money that they then donate to, I think it was stray animals one time. And they have business activities that generate money. And they're charging for some services, but we have no control over that. They're charging food vendors $250 a booth for a food truck.
Right.
$100 a merchant, which I think are great, because they're trying to create a sustainable year-long program.
Right, which I think is no longer about stray animals, I mean, based on what I've heard. What were you gonna say?
Oh, just that, I mean, Pride is just such a large event. It's gonna cost more, especially with the security, and having officers there to maintain public safety. If Juneteenth in 2 years draws, 5,000, 6,000 people to the village, then we're gonna start talking about that cost too. So it's just a big event.
It would be helpful to me to have a list of all the events, whether it's council, who's ever paying, and how much village is putting into it. Because, as I said, it's not just what council or a commission puts into it, it's what the village,
Yeah,
and government as a whole.
Right, village-
That would help me look at it and make decisions about where council might.
Yeah, I think it would help all of us to be able to see everything together and as opposed to cherry picking notes and whatnot. And yeah, and I think the, not trying to draw another line of delineation, but, you know, anything that's blocking 68 or having a parade, you know, that's that extra $2,500.
We don't New Year's Eve too, we do New Year's Eve too.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
we don't pay money for that.
Yeah, that was not as big a deal, but any of these things that are parades or big
Yeah.
movements, I mean, that, they're in a different tier, you know, but we definitely have to separate them differently, but that's where there's this sunk cost that the village is expected to pay, I mean,
Yeah.
overtime for police and all that.
Yeah.
Maybe this is silly, but I think the thing that kind of gets under my skin is beer garden. Beer garden is straight money in your pocket, and it's here. So to me, if there's a beer garden event, can we just not say, that's $800? You wanna have a beer garden, it's $800. But we already do, there's charge for the electric, there's the security. But if you have a beer garden, you have to up your security a lot. There's a lot more occurrences due to consumption.
Yeah.
And they're making money. And so if you just say beer garden equals this cost, if you're holding it on village property instead of this cost, which it now, it's kind